So, folks, we are once again here on the on the brink of embarking upon an entirely new journey into madness. Truly, a Lovecraftian endeavor lies before us, where we are going to sail to the heart of conservative madness. And of course, where else would that be located than in the form of a WhatIfAltHist's video on YouTube.com? Jack, how much money do we have to give you to not? That ship has sailed. If you wanted to prevent this, you would have had to bring up that idea earlier. We're going to cover finally a video that WhatIfAltHist's talks about in almost every single one of his videos. Okay? And it is about mouse Utopia. All right? A series of experiments from like the 1960s and 70s about mice social structure and procreation habits. Okay? That's essentially where we're at. It is kind of one of the fundamental scientific ideas at the heart of everything he talks about, which is why he references it all the time. And we're finally going to cover that particular video. Now, you might be asking yourselves, why spend the time? Why spend the time looking at this clown's posts? And I do have to reiterate, this man is in the same circles as people who have the ear of Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and such. You know, he has talked with a number of these power brokers. He is within that circle, and that's how people like Elon Musk come to retweet his ideas to tens of millions of people. It's, well, unfortunately, our problem now that we have to deal with. We must venture into the heart of this video, and hopefully in the process, we will illuminate it with the light of knowledge, and will be summarily destroyed. You know, that's the hope. Kind of like, I don't know, like the Rebel Alliance from the hit movie and video games Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. Except not that one. That was literally the only one where that didn't happen. Star Wars Return of the Jedi. There we go. Nailed it.
You. After learning about what I know here, my life hasn't been the same. I think about what I talk about in this video on a daily basis.
Okay, we're 10 seconds in and already like, oh boy. Oh boy. You think about this video on a daily basis. I think we found it. I think we found the root.
If you don't want to know this, turn back now. That being said, I know that by saying that, this is gonna make all of you watch this video. I know this advertising tactic here is shameless, but it doesn't stop it from being true. To be honest,
They already clicked on, we already clicked on the video. We're locked in, man. We can't leave now.
I want us all to know about this, partly so that I can share the weight of this, and also so that hopefully we can do something about it. You'll understand why I say this by the end.
Why are you showing it? Why are you showing one of these little electrical balls that they sell to children? Like, what are you doing, man? What is this? What is the presentation speaking to here, man?
Into the video. I'm already
It's a little quiet. I can boost it a bit. We'll go to 250.
Shocked that only a very small percentage of the people I talk to know about this, and I'm already talking to people who are much more aware, educated, and intelligent than the general public. I love this painting. The way it works is that some people see an old lady, others see a young woman. Life is like that, where we all inhabit the same world, but we all make out different patterns to explain it in terms that are comprehensible to us. My goal for WhatIfAltHist's is to let people who are looking at this painting see both images at the same time, and explain which one of these interpretations I believe to be the most correct. I try to share other ways of looking at it, even if I don't agree. That's why I explain the
Is this guy okay? No. This guy is definitely not okay.
worldviews of each civilization and era of history. By the end of this video, you will start looking at the movie that is our lives in a completely different way. In my own personal life, this feels like a plot twist at the end of a movie, which changes its entire meaning.
Okay, can we... This isn't a plot twist, though. Like, Get Out's plot twist is not... This isn't an example of what you're talking about. Man. Like, at all. Like, the movie builds up to this. It's not like suddenly it recontextualizes everything, like... At
the end of a movie, which changes its entire meaning. While the world is spiraling out of control, sometimes you just need to tune everything out for a bit and listen to some good music. And today's sponsor, Raycon, can help you with just that. Raycon is a quality product that I use every day.
Oh, good. Good job, Raycon. You definitely got a great spokesperson here.
I've done. One of the recent videos I've made is explaining modern civilization. I pulled on 68 books as sources, which is something like 25,000 pages. For this video, the main source I'm using, although I reference many other books which you'll see in the description, is less than 10 pages. That being the Mouse...
Boy, howdy!
Utopia study itself. There's so much to unpack in each page that it'll take me a second to go through all the interpretations possible. Mouse Utopia was a study in the late 60s and early 70s in Maryland. This was the era of the most rapid population growth ever, and people were really worried about what the implications for that might be. This was the era Soylent Green was made in. Thankfully, the 20th century has dodged all the crises it expected to have, whether nuclear war, overpopulation, oil depletion, and more. I wish our society was collectively more grateful that we dodged so many bullets, but we're not a particularly wise culture. Keep in mind that as we go forward, this is the best argument for why this won't happen, that we've had so many crises before that just didn't occur. The guy who ran this experiment...
Well, that's not... We've had so many crises before that just didn't occur. Well, then they weren't really crises, were they? Like...
Calhoun did this thing in a bunch of cases. The test which became famous was Universe 25. This universe was the biggest and lasted for years. However, all the previous experiments had similar end results to this on a smaller scale. What they did in Universe 25 was put 9 mice into a cage with infinite food and no disease. It was cleaned regularly, had no predators, and a perfectly temperate climate. These are ideal conditions for population growth. The test was designed to create the most perfect optimal conditions for increasing numbers. What happened initially was exactly what you would expect, that the population grew incredibly rapidly. The population doubled every 55 days. The mouse population plateaued around 315 days. By that point, the mouse population was around 2,000, where the cage was designed to hold something around 6,000, so not even close to total capacity. Upon that point, birth rates went down and stabilized. After this, things are going to get very, very strange. The mouse social structure started to break down on every single level. Both mouse sexes converged. Male mice became effeminate. They started secreting feminine hormones when tested. There became this class of male mice who showed no interest in mating, but would groom themselves daily. The scientists called these the beautiful ones. Male mice lost any masculinity and kinda stopped doing anything to maintain the mouse social structure.
Oh no! The mouse femboys happened.
Beautiful ones don't really exist inside mouse social relationships. Rather, their entire lives were in what amounted to isolation and just self-grooming. The urine the beautiful ones excreted showed chemicals demonstrating intense stress. The thing is that they largely weren't, in that they weren't under too many actual external pressures. The process...
Now, I hope that you all can understand. Is he real right now? He's real right now. I hope you can already all understand some of the problems with this, right? Which is that Calhoun in this experiment anthropomorphized these mice to such a degree that he mapped mice social structures onto human beings and vice versa, basically completely in the process completely narrativizing the data, right? Whatever data might actually have been gained. And so one thing there to point out, right? Like, oh man, the beautiful ones, the femboy mice, like, okay, maybe. But also, I want to direct your attention to a couple graphs that Rudyard just showed on screen.
Of permanently being
We got these graphs. Where are these graphs at? So, just an example graph. Now, one might wonder, wait a minute, why do they grow so fast right here? And then they start slowing down. Well, it's because they reached the confines of the cage, right? They grew until they hit, like, the environment's holding rate, and then they started to get too stressed out to procreate, and they died out. Like, this isn't difficult to figure out, right? Like, hey guys, if you're in standing room only, like if you're in basically a perpetual mosh pit and you have no privacy, and you are just like everyone around you is just trying to get some food and like fall asleep standing up, like, you're not going to want to have sex. That's not that doesn't put you in the mood. And on top of that, yeah, we're basically just talking about carrying capacity of an environment. And you might say, well, there might have been more room in there. It's like, sure, but in the wild where mice live, you know, it gets too crowded, they just go dig another hole. Yeah, even natural environments only support so much biomass, and like different creatures have different social structures that result in different, you know, capacity for, you know, compact society. But it seems pretty obvious to me, just on first blush, that one, you're anthropomorphizing these animals to too great of a degree.
Helped.
I mean, maybe, Migala. Thank you for the €5. But number two, like, they're clearly just hitting a natural carrying capacity. This isn't difficult to understand, but when you are trying to explain the concept of carrying capacity via anthropomorphized rats, then you get to some wacky conclusions. And that is exactly what we're going to see here, all right?
Ones don't really exist inside mouse social relationships. Rather, their entire lives were in what amounted to isolation and just self-grooming. The urine the beautiful ones excreted showed chemicals demonstrating intense stress. The thing is that they largely weren't, in that they weren't under too many actual external pressures.
I'm not sure I even understand the conclusion right-wingers are trying to make from the experiment. Cities make you gay. Basically, yes. Like, that sounds silly, but basically what they're saying is modern society is prone to degeneracy, and degeneracy comes out of cities. And it comes out of cities because cities just put everyone too close together, and it makes them gay and turns them into femboys, and they stop procreating, and that's why the birth rate is declining. That's literally their argument, right? The argument is cities make you gay, and like they're the reason society is declining, and we need to turn like cities more conservative in order to save civilization. Like, that's the general idea.
Process of permanently being hormonally stressed was taxing on their bodies, and thus they were unable to really do anything else. Mice communicate through urine and scent, thus through this they were demonstrating their immense inner pain and stress to the other mice around them. Female mice became very aggressive and very masculine. They started raising the baby mice incorrectly, kicking them out of the nest too early. They became incredibly aggressive to their young, even attacking them.
Again, this is pretty explicable given like a lack of space.
created generations of numb mice who were not properly socialized. They were completely unable to interact with the world or socially. The female mice lost interest in breeding and raising families, just like the males. Many female mice started living in isolation from the rest of the mouse community, hiding away in far-off parts of the pen, showing no interest in family or mating. Calhoun liked to say that the mice became autistic. This was in the 60s before...
You know, like, maybe if you're at the point where you're drawing broad societal conclusions from a man who's diagnosing mice with autism, because of the stress of living inside of his worlds that he controlled the conditions of, like, I don't know. Jack, did he claim mice autism? He did indeed. You know, clearly he must have been giving the mice Tylenol.
Or autism was a buzzword either, and autism was much less common back then. So if he said it, it really meant something back then.
Yeah, people had a much better understanding of autism back in the 60s. You know, just 30 years after the time period where they were talking about high functioning and low functioning.
I forbid you to have a yucky white name during this segment match.
Just 30 minutes, 30 years, sorry, after they were talking about Asperger's. Hey, who came up with that dichotomy again? Of high functioning and low functioning and in autism, Asperger's? Who came up with that? Oh yeah, it's the Nazis. The Nazis came up with that idea. Huh, okay, yeah, alright. Anyway, yeah, this guy in the 1960s really knew his stuff about autism in mice, though.
They lost the ability to interact socially. He called this the first death, or a spiritual death. He saw that the mice had no joie de vivre, or joy of life or reason to live. The life force was just sucked out of them. He said this happened far before their actual numbers started to collapse. Mice live much like Andrew Tate, with alpha males keeping harems of females who raise children. Thus, with all these factors...
God, what a loser. What a fucking loser, dude. Yeah, mice in nature are just like Andrew Tate. Or maybe Andrew Tate is just like a mouse. Did you ever consider that one? Did you ever consider that mice are like Andrew Tate, or vice versa, that Tate is like mice? Andrew Tate mouse. The third Feifel movie goes horribly wrong.
Going on, what you're effectively seeing was a breakdown of the ability for mice to coordinate on a group level or breed at any level. This chart creates a useful breakdown of the different kinds of mice you saw emerge as society fell apart. You saw a group of mice which were obsessed with social approval. They wouldn't eat unless they saw other mice.
Again, so much of this is just anthropomorphized conjecture. And you can't really draw any conclusions about this. Like, none of this is scientific, right? Like, I don't even really know how to put this into words. The guy, Calhoun, the guy who did these experiments, right? He worked on this from, like, the 19... I want to say, like, 1960 to 1995. This guy was just making different rat environments. Almost none of them were published. Almost all of his research was completely unpublished, like random asides about it in various scientific articles, but like it's just not backed up by even Calhoun's own findings, really.
Eat. They would all cluster together in the center of the cage, even though there was lots of space.
Like this guy was such a kook, he was forced into retirement in like the late 80s. Like he was not well liked by his peers because they were just like, it's the freaky rat man. It's the rat man. You know, it's the guy who just keeps doing all these weird experiments with rats or mice and like learning nothing as a result.
The outside, their gender roles collapsed and they were constantly driven by stimulation from other mice. They basically became adrenaline junkies through social approval. A second group just went numb. They stopped interacting with the society. They only went out at night. They lost interest in interacting with other mice socially. These mice basically became zombies. They wandered around like the homeless. They let themselves get casually beaten up and hurt by other mice since they just lost any will to live. The third group of mice became incredibly aggressive. They would wander around in packs and randomly attack and target other mice for what they didn't really see as any reason. They would torture and bite up other mice for fun. They would attack any mice that were still having children and trying to maintain.
Also, just a good question here. If this is all one occurrence within one of these universes in which the test was run, surely it was replicable enough that it turned up in all of the experiments and other scientists were able to replicate these results, right? Right? Surely other scientists would have been able to replicate this experiment, right? Oh no, no one's ever been able to replicate it. Oh. Huh. Weird.
The mouse social structure. They were sexually hyperactive, but not for any reasons of actual procreation. As the birth rate collapsed, this group—
I'm sorry, what? They were sexually active, but not for the reasons of procreation? I don't think mice make that. I don't think mice make that distinction. I don't think they're having, like, you know, no sex before marriage talks amongst their mice relatives. You know, you only have sex if you want children. I don't, like, what? How do you measure the chastity of a mouse?
were really the ones which destroyed the mouse colony, killing any who tried to maintain social norms or continue the species. What happened with this is that in each of the 30 experiments, the mouse colony—
That's not sex, that's a dominance display, that's it? Okay, so it's just normal mice behavior.
Completely collapsed. The mice just stopped having children, and this crashed their numbers. The mice who did try to keep going were killed by mobs of evil mice. After day 1700, there were absolutely no mice left. A couple outtakes before we move on to the next section. First, I'm surprised at how advanced the mouse social structure was as I read this. I'm frankly surprised that mice have a society at all. When you see these things scurrying around your house, you don't really think about them having a cultural system with different expectations that can experience social collapse in the same—
They don't. They don't have one of those, actually. There's not a mice. I'm sorry, did you watch Fievel Goes West? And you were like, ah, yes, this is a good example of mouse culture. Like, what are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? Did you see Ratatouille too many times as a kid? You know, when you see a mouse, you don't really think of the possibility that could leap onto your head at any moment and ratatouille you know? Take all of your bodily autonomy, just, like, pilot you around like a giant, fleshy mecha. You never really think about that, do you? I'm very intelligent.
Manner we saw with the fall of Rome or the Mayans. Authors like Joseph Heinrich or E.O. Wilson talk about how culture is fundamentally genetic and dates back deep into our animal roots. That's very clear to see here. Mice aren't particularly smart, but except for—
but I would make a distinction between social dynamics and a culture. You know? I think there are different— I think there's a difference. You know, like, mice aren't making little pieces of art. They're not making pottery. They're not like, they're like, that's not, it's, as far as we are aware, they do not have a culture. They do have social dynamics in a group setting, but, like, that ain't a culture. It's clear to see here, mice aren't particularly smart. Actually, that's not clear at all. That's not clear at all, because different creatures are different levels of smart despite different configurations of brain, man. Like, octopi are, like, octopus are some of the smartest creatures on the planet, and they don't got brains like us.
One thing, their neurological structures aren't fundamentally that different than ours, except ours are much, much larger. Mice and us both share the lizard brain, which controls for automatic functions like breathing, sleeping, or fear. Then we both share the mammal brain, which controls for things like love, affection, jealousy, and emotion. As humans, we have a much, much more developed prefrontal cortex. That's the region that governs self-discipline and planning. What this means is that automatic functions we don't really think about are pretty similar between mice and humans. We both feel love, horniness, hate, and stuff like that. This creates continuity between us on the instant.
I'm sorry, this picture is fucking sending me, man. the fucking dual arrow stance while apparently being next to a tamed saber-toothed tiger and a woolly mammoth. This is Jesus Christ, what is this?
Instinctual parts of this process. When we see this mouse society fall apart, it's not a mental choice on the mice's part. It's a chemical shift which makes them not want to associate with other mice, effeminate, or not want to breed. This stuff is lodged in the lizard and mammal brains which we share with mice. The part where our brains differ from mice is that we have the ability to plan, think abstractly, and make choices. The mice are effectively creatures of instinct in that the choices they make in life are what they're wired from birth to do. For us humans, our giant brains allow us to be neurologically wired in a bunch of different ways due to culture. If humans had our mouse utopia, we'd be capable of noticing what's going on and adapt to it. These mice can't. Calhoun tried to create new mouse colonies and new experiments which encouraged creativity to see if creative thinking could offset the failures of the colony. He was surprised in some of these experiments to find mice that would pick up a habit of tunneling for fun and making balls of dirt as a hobby as a sign of mouse creativity in a collapsing, crowded society. I've read conflicting reports on how well this works. I think it forestalled the social collapse for some.
I've read conflicting reports on how well this works from what? Like, as far as I'm aware throughout this, you're only talking about Calhoun's experiments, so, like, what conflicting reports?
Mice without stopping the process. To be honest, the idea of using creativity to offset complete social collapse is such a late 20th century idea. As a person born in the 21st century, I'm always shocked by that era's ability to think we'll find some magical MacGuffin through love, creativity, the power of friendship, or technology so as to not deal with some vast systemic social issue. I remember hearing...
What? I'm sorry, I got so distracted by this meme. Jesus Christ.
Magical MacGuffin through love, creativity, the power of friendship, or technology, so as to...
The magical MacGuffin through the power of friendship isn't the magical MacGuffin. It's fucking friendship. It's friendship! It's finding strength in community, you dipshit! It's not a magical concept, it's just the power of working together for a common goal! God damn it! I'm so mad! Yeah, this guy dumb.
Not deal with some vast systemic social issue. I remember hearing all that kind of thing as a child with friendship is the answer or follow your dreams from adults around me as a kid. Then my generation got shafted. Well, none of that was actually useful advice. A point I'd like to make is
I'm sorry.
The answer or follow your dreams from adults around me.
Friendship was the answer, and all of that was bullshit. It's just like, dude, get better friends, man. Like, I don't know, find community with some people, because, like, it just kind of seems like, you know, yeah, sure, our generation got shafted, but, like, fucking deal with it, you know? Like, put on the big boy pants, make some friends. Having friends makes a lot of things easier.
As a kid. Then my generation got shafted. Well, none of that was actually useful advice. A point I'd like to make is that although these experiments were replicated many times by Calhoun himself, they never were by anyone else. People take this as a dunk on saying the experiment isn't valid. I think that is a factor to be aware of.
Leave it to a guy who's never had real friends to meme about the power of friendship being a MacGuffin.
Kumi, thank you for the $5 dono.
Were replicated many times by Calhoun himself, They never were by anyone else. People take...
Well, also, Calhoun did not do reporting on his own experiments by and large. The vast majority of the experiments between his 1960-something start date and 1986, vast majority of them did not have funding. It's why he was pushed out. It's why he stopped getting NIH grant money for these, because he didn't find anything significant. And, like, he didn't publish anything except for a couple of reports, notably the one you are talking about right now that is so horribly and pretty obviously flawed that, like, obviously most of the people associated with it disowned it. Like, there's a reason scientists don't usually publish their work and then make sweeping generalizations about society backed by nothing other than what they pulled out of their ass. You know, usually scientists want to, you know, have documentation and evidence for their claims.
This is a dunk on saying the experiment isn't valid. I think that is a factor to be...
Dude never even took, like, biological samples of the mice, really? Like, none of it could be, like, checked after the fact?
Aware of. However, keep in mind, the vast majority of scientific experiments are never replicated ever. What's normal is that when they are...
Yeah, except that people tried to replicate his experiments, Ding Dong, and they weren't able to. It's like when you say the vast majority of scientific experiments are never replicated, it's... Yeah, but, like, if they are replicated, then they get validated, generally. But if you try to replicate an experiment and you can't do it, that's a huge problem for the initial experiment, isn't it?
There's only a 50% chance of it working. And in some fields like psychology, only 0.07% of experiments are ever replicated at all. As a side tangent, this is actually a really huge problem in our society in which...
Yeah, there is a big replication problem in science, but, like, this is not one of those times. You know, the replication problem in science is real and a big deal, but people tried to recreate this experiment.
Some fields, like again psychology before, could be completely fake and we'd have no idea. This is a huge issue in...
That's just not true, man. It could all be fake. You don't know. What do you know? You just have a PhD.
Physics, where entire theories of fundamental nature for how the universe works are based off one or two inconclusive experiments, which people then extrapolate outwards with math. So
yeah, the one or two experiments that then are replicatable, and then people try and explain the results of the experiment. Yeah, that is how science works.
So vast parts of the fields of physics could be completely fake. When you see your local news station talk about some study that says chocolate in small doses is healthy for you, alternately how in school they taught you carbohydrates are healthy and...
Wait, chocolate in small doses is healthy for you. Chocolate has, like, it's high in fiber. It's densely nutritious. Like, maybe milk chocolate, but, like, dark chocolate, it's relatively healthy for you. You know, but, like, if you eat only bread, you're gonna be your body's gonna be kind of fucked. Similarly, if you eat only dark chocolate, your body's not gonna be okay. The lesson here is that you need to have a little bit of all the good stuff.
Lean mean isn't. What happens here is that some special interest pays for the results of a study. It never gets replicated, and then it becomes social policy. Thus, our society is managed by pseudoscience, pushed by the power...
Oh, good, the first full screen. Examples of motivated pseudoscience in our society. There are sizable personality and biological differences between men and women. Uh-huh. And, I guess I agree with that. Examples of motivated pseudoscience in our society. I guess saying I'm actually God. So he's giving these are all examples of pseudoscience, but, like, okay, all right. Oh God, okay. Number two. Biological race is a fact. We find more evidence every year for this. Jesus Christ. He's so racist. God. Dude literally made a video where he's talking about how he had a magic justice bloodline. But okay. Alright. Race is a social construct. That's true. But, Rudyard is what they call a race realist, i.e. a racist. 3. Corn syrup and seed oils drive obesity, not saturated fats. Second 3, because we needed 2 3s. We pushed quantum theory, black holes, and Einstein's theories in physics off some very weak and spotty evidence. Oh no. Oh no. Rudyard, we literally have a picture of a black hole. Rudyard, we literally have a picture of one. Oh no, Rudyard. Rudyard, no. Here's black hole M87. We literally have a picture of it. That is light from another galaxy bending around a black hole, everybody. Isn't that cool? Isn't it cool that we can do that? But like, first of all, we literally have a picture of one. And second of all, Einstein's theories are based off of weak and spotty evidence? Einstein? You're picking a fight with fucking Einstein, man. Alright. Like, if you want to say, well, quantum theory has some issues because we haven't been able to bridge the gap between, Einstein's, understanding of gravity and the quantum realm. And it's just like, okay, sure, those are things we don't know, but Einstein's theory of relativity holds up incredibly well. Incredibly well. And yes, my dude, you put 3 twice, indeed, right? We basically invented modern monetary theory with no evidence. Okay, so modern monetary theory is just the idea that because
quantum physics is bullshit, says the man who cannot count to 4 properly on his own slide.
True, Nomi Sunrider. Thank you for the $5 super chat. But like, I mean, we invented modern monetary theory in order to continue the abstraction of money of money that holds value from scarce objects that hold value. Previously we used like gold and silver, and then we got off the gold standard, and then money became a really much weirder thing once people stopped understanding it as it's gold, so therefore obviously it's valuable, right? And like, the question you want to ask there is like, okay, so we invented that with no evidence. Like, what? With no evidence of what exactly? No evidence that value could be abstracted? Because, like, value is abstract. We all value things differently. God, we're not even halfway done. We reject the idea that there are lessons to history with no evidence. What? What does that mean? Lessons to history with no evidence. I genuinely have no idea what he means by this. Your guess is as good as mine. All the humanities are ideologically motivated, where everything must fit inside a leftist prism. The humanities assume, which of course you can't explain, via Einstein's theories. The left prism functions differently. The humanities assume that the blank slate, which has been disproven strongly. Okay, as somebody with a degree in the humanities, I can tell you guys, they aren't reliant on people being born tabula rasa. That's not that has never been the bedrock idea of the humanities. And I don't know where he gets that from. Almost every trait, including personality and intelligence, is half genetic. But our society operates off the blank slate. And again, I don't know that our society operates only because we assume that people are born neither good nor evil, but like neutral. Chat, Jack, does any of this make sense? I'm only half listening. Usually my basic white American woman knowledge lets me understand this man, but not now. No, all of this is fucking nonsense, of course. 8. We assume human nature is rational, but we've found is studies we mostly rationalize our emotions. I don't know why you're saying we assume. Like, human beings are not naturally rational. Like, our brains are still monkey brains. They are fleshy. They are prone to mistake. And it just seems to me like, you know, the rationality is kind of in spite of all of our, you know, inclination towards failure. You know, like the rationality needs to be cultivated. I feel like I'm having a stroke in a 101 degree fever. Like you have to be educated into rational, logical forms of thinking. Like that doesn't really naturally arise in like animals, generally speaking. Oh god. All right. Like the only point I'm trying to make is that we are prone towards emotion-based decision making, not towards like long-term planning and rational acts.
And here's like 10 examples of this as a text wall.
Good night, Gamer
However,
G.
complaining
Good night,
this
Ashley.
experiment hasn't been replicated is kind of silly in my opinion, since it's like saying the moon landing hasn't been replicated. To fund lots of people.
What are you talking about? We sent more people to the moon. What are you talking about? We've been to the moon multiple times.
Working on a project like this for multiple years straight, as Universe 25 took 5 years to complete, is a miracle in itself. Things that expensive are very, very rare, let alone funding a replication experiment.
Dude kept doing it until 1995. He did it for like 35 years, bro.
Where universities almost never fund replication experiments, and their rankings are assessed predominantly by research. Thus, there's no incentive to put lots of money into replicating an already expensive...
He got funding until 1986. But people have attempted to replicate it and did not replicate his findings.
Study that would be difficult to get funding for in the first place. The fact that Calhoun has run various versions of this experiment around 30 times itself is incredibly impressive, and that's something you almost never see. Part 2. If Mouse Utopia were to happen. I'd like to ask this question. If Mouse Utopia were to happen to us as a human society, what would it look like? One of the top principles I used to figure out what the...
Like, genuinely, you remember, like, the mouse femboys that we talked about at the beginning of the video? That has literally never been observed in mice ever again. Like, when we're talking about, like, a replicable part of the experiment, we're talking about, like, literally this behavior is not observed ever in any experiments with these creatures. So, like... none of these gave useful information. None of these, like, did anything except create, like, essentially a conspiracy theory to sell books. You know, like, I'm actively losing brain cells. It's true. We've encountered, you know, neural entropy.
Truth is to ask the question, if blank were to be the case, what would it look like? From that, I compare what that would be to the reality that I see to see if that's the fundamental causal principle. For example, I see lots of political dissenters say that America's a dictatorship. However, we still have journalistic freedom, we're not genociding ethnic minorities, we still have some rights, and a...
What? Wait a minute, back that up.
Reality that I see to see if that's the fundamental causal principle. For example, I see lots of political dissenters say that America's a dictatorship. However, we still have journalistic freedom, we're not genociding ethnic minorities,
When did this video come out? This came out a year ago. The genocide in Gaza was still happening. Come on now.
We still have some rights and a two-party state with a competitive electoral system. Thus, I see that the scenario doesn't match the hypothetical Thus, we're not a dictatorship. If a human society were to have mouse utopia, the first step would be there would be some massive breakthrough, likely technological, in which the population rapidly balloons. This would be an era of profound optimism. This sort of thing would have never been seen before in history. Thus, this society would develop a concept that it was inherently special, and, like nothing before in history, was comparable. This is very similar to our concept of modernity, which I talk about in this video, which I think you should check out afterwards because I believe it to be one of my best. In this video, I talk about how modernity is defined as the rejection of previous societies.
God, okay. So he's gone beyond like the mouse thing now. So let's just quickly talk about an attempt to replicate some of Calhoun's findings, right? Which is a paper from 1966 titled Interplay Between Social Ecology and Physiology, Genetics and Population Dynamics of Mice by Alexander Kessler, right? And Kessler essentially tried to run a very similar experiment to Calhoun's, right? He had two different high-density groups, and he ran the experiment, and he did not, in fact, encounter a population collapse. He viewed a population stagnation. I'm gonna quote this here from the end of Kessler's paper. The large sizes and unusual degree of crowding attained by the freely growing populations in this study compared with previous studies may be related to the types of animals used, to the number of individuals in the founder nuclei, and to the physical structure of the enclosures. Extreme crowding was compatible with general physical health, the decline of fertility and fecundity, the decreased survival of newborns, and the appearance of behavioral aberrations rather than disease or an increase in adult mortality represented the major self-regulatory mechanisms that eventually limited population growth. The growth of individuals was not inhibited. Social withdrawal and the decline of social interaction rather than a rise of interaction characterized the population. Such findings cast doubt on the generality of the so-called stress theory of social ecology that emphasizes increased interaction and pituitary adrenal hyperactivity as the principal mechanisms involved in the self-regulation of vertebrate populations. Basically, Kessler did not observe in the social aberrations the generalized anthropomorphic nature that Calhoun reported, right? So when Calhoun talks about the beautiful ones or drinkers that were like blocking other mice from drinking or autistic mice, Kessler, in fact, doesn't observe any of those behaviors whatsoever. And he does observe an uptick in homosexual mating as well as like some cannibalism. But by and large, not the results, not like the population collapse, not like this rise of what Rudyard is setting up here to be sexual degeneracy on the part of mice that reflects how, modern LGBTQ society has become, Cannibalism is a common rodent stress behavior. Yeah, basically, Kessler just observes that, like, as they reach the confines of the cage in terms of, like, size of the population, like, there's a rise in antisocial behavior, but, like, not anything that isn't reversible, i.e. he could take a rat out and put it into, like, a not crowded cage, and the rat, or mouse, rather, would revert to, like, normal mouse behavior, right? So, like, it's just not really backed up by even the attempts to back it up, Rudyard, you're just wrong on this one.
People believe that none of the rules or values that took thousands of years to develop over history are useful.
Oh man, modernist culture today? Look at all those modernists in New Zealand and Australia and Europe and Japan and New York and the entire East Coast and West Coast. Ho ho ho.
This is useful and necessary for the rest of Mouse Utopia, since it's the main preconception that allows all of the other—
Why is this guy projecting onto mice this hard? Because the foundation of his entire conservative thesis is that modern human society is like the degenerate mouse utopia, and thus we are hurtling towards extinction because the left and LGBTQ people are essentially symptoms of a deeper disease that is going to cause mass population collapse. That's essentially his thesis here. I might be jumping the gun a little bit.
Crazy factors to emerge later down the road. If people have a sense of being rooted in the past, then they have a standard to assess themselves against, where it becomes impossible to get them to do all the crazy stuff which occurs next in Mouse Utopia, since they can compare themselves to the thousands of years of history before and think, what's going on now is crazy and unnatural. The first step is that you need to remove—
I love that, like, Richard's like, this is crazy and unnatural. It's like, people dressing for like a fancy ball in like the year 1600, 1700.
Move a continuity with the past in order to see the later changes. Most negative changes start by seeming unimportant or reasonable.
Why is he showing the Martin Niemöller poem? What the hell?
Or very often necessary against an even worse thing. Income tax was installed in America as a way to pay for the world's wars. It seemed reasonable as a way to fight off this giant external threat. However, the government kept the top income tax at 90% for decades after the war for no real good reasons.
I mean, I can think of some good reasons, like, you know, school funding and roads and, you know, general welfare of the people.
Start smoking cigarettes to get through a point of stress, and then you find yourself hooked for years afterwards, even when you don't need them. With the cultural changes implicit to Mouse Utopia, the previous culture—
Ah yes, taxing the billionaire class, just like getting hooked on cigarettes. You heard it here first, folks.
Traditions tethering that society to the earth would probably be removed first, since they seemed mean. I can understand that. Societies in eras of harshness often develop very harsh moral codes as a way of keeping the population tough so the society survives. Women need to have kids, not follow their dreams of being an artist, as the population needs a strong birth rate so the
Also, I'm sorry, but like the idea that a woman following her dreams of being an artist can't like also fuck is kind of silly, right? Like that's just silly. Also, Sparta was weak as fuck.
neighboring group doesn't outbreed and conquer them. Your sons need to be tough so that he can fight or survive famines. You need to have strong sexual mores to build up tension and incentive for young men to work hard for that society. Once you—
What? To build you what? You need to have sexual mores to build up tension. I don't know, just have some riz, man. Like if you need society to outline rules for you, like sorry, you need to cultivate that riz.
remove those external threats, removing those standards seems kind. Without external threats, with the
Oh god, okay. Let's look at this process in the West after the removal of the external Soviet threat. After the Soviet Union fell, the West lost any external reality check.
I'm pretty sure Sparta got wrecked by both the Persians and Athenians, but that kick.
Look, she kicks high, Paladin. Thank you for the tier 1 sub over on Twitch. Appreciated. What is a social more? A social more, it's just like the social rules and expectations, you know? Like, you know, you put your knife and spoon just so, and your fork just so, and you can't approach her until after she's made 2 glances in your direction, and if you do, you're a slut. You know, like, there's just, like, a lot of, you know, the nitty-gritty, like, rules of social interaction that change all the time, you know? After the 1990 inequality ballooned, government spending went through the roof, the left went mad, political polarization increased, degeneracy rose. All of those occurred since the Soviets meant that people in the West could agree to, if we don't keep our act together, we'll be enslaved by the communists. Once that threat was removed, so was accountability. When Rome beat Carthage, Hannibal apocryphally cursed that Rome could not survive without Carthage as an enemy. Shortly after, Roman society started to degenerate. Now, real quick, I'm curious here. Just a quick fact check. Let me just. Okay, when did the Punic Wars end? Oh, that's right, 146 BC. When did Rome collapse? Oh, like 600 years later. Oh, okay. All right. You know, like, it started to get worse then. It only took multiple centuries.
Threat of plague, war, or famine, morality changes drastically. In a society of scarcity, morality is responsibility. You have to plan outwards, since if you don't, your society is going to collapse. Your children will die, or your people will be enslaved. Thus, morality is the act of behaving in a manner which makes sure you and your people survive. However, once you remove the external...
I don't know if that's morality. Like, I feel like that's... I feel like you're kind of missing the forest for the trees, or at very least, like, don't understand what morality is.
Threats, morality will morph into just being kind. Without the threat of dying, the most moral thing you can do is let people follow their dreams, not rocking the boat. In this system, the old code of responsibility looks oppressive. The only moral code left is permissiveness, acceptance, and kindness. A point I want to get across is that we overestimate the power of the conscious mind in our society. We think humans are inherently rational, and that if there's an issue, that we can rationally decide to...
Literally no one thinks that. Have you ever met, like, another human being? Human beings are not cold, calculating machines. I don't know, man. Like, someone can, like, I don't know, dig up some old trauma, and suddenly you're crying like a little baby, even though rationally it doesn't make any sense. It's because our hardware is made out of meat. Our hardware is kind of software, you know. It's or semi-hardware, maybe. Like, we're not rational beings. There's a reason we need to be taught logic.
Change it. That every problem in human population is from a conscious choice made. This is why when we see, let's say, disparities in income between the sexes or races, we assume it's due to oppression, rather than thinking, could this be due to historical, cultural, or genetic factors?
Okay. Alright. I'm gonna fucking lose it. I'm gonna fucking lose it. I'm gonna fucking lose it.
The reality is just choice made. This is why when we see, let's say, disparities in income between the sexes or races, we assume it's due to oppression, rather than thinking, could this be due to historical, cultural, or genetic factors?
Historical factors or cultural factors would be the oppression. Historic and cultural factors are, when you are talking about this, the oppressive factors. Oppression is literally rooted in, you know, the power dynamics and systems that came before. So yes, historical factors. Yes, cultural factors. Genetic factors, no, because on that one, he's trying to make an appeal to, like, yes, black people are just economically less productive. Yes, women just deserve to earn more, or earn less, rather. You know, like, dude is incredibly, like, just obvious about that one. But the other two are, like, yeah, that's literally, when we're talking about oppression, we're talking about those factors.
Reality is the exact...
He clearly means cultural, as in this race is inferior and lazy. No, he means that for genetics. Cultural, he might also mean it that way. But he definitely means it for genetics.
Opposite. That the human mind is only very thinly conscious, with us controlled by giant subconscious wiring, which controls almost all of us, that we barely control or understand. We forget how much circumstance, genetics, or upbringing change how we think. For example, I've struggled with PTSD. There are points where it feels almost like a switch goes off in my brain and I become incredibly paranoid. I'll rationally know I'm fine, but I'll emotionally feel like I'm dying. It can sometimes look as if the light in the room is changing. As I get more stressed, the lights literally get darker, even though I'm in the exact same place. Then I'll take
That's interesting. For me, the lights get brighter.
a cup of kratom, a Southeast Asian supplement which counteracts
Oh no. Oh, no, 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 no. You're taking kratom for PTSD? Don't do that. For people listening, be careful with kratom. It can be addictive if you're not careful. That being said, as a person with PTSD, it's the only thing which reliably works.
PTSD. Within a second, my thought process changes completely. I can suddenly think about what I'll cook for dinner or what book I'll read next. These are neurological changes which I can't control, but completely change how I think. You see neurological and hormonal changes which we have no control over massively influence how we live our lives on a very profound basis.
Wait, what is kratom? Oh, it's basically like it's a stimulant. It's a highly addictive stimulant, kind of like, increased awareness, more energy, like, more social, I guess. But, like, it's also just not, it's not good. it can really fuck you up. So, just as an FYI, would not be my first recommendation.
When I'm sick, I'll get depressed and I can't plan for the future. I purposely have a policy that I'm not going to make life choices when I'm sick because I just have no faith. When I used to live in the Yucatan or Thailand,
why are you talking about this? How did we get from Mouse Utopia to here?
the heat changed how I thought. In the hotter climate, I had trouble having initiative, being creative, and I stayed up late at night. The thing with Mouse Utopia is you're seeing instinctive subconscious shifts among the mice, which humans would then rationalize. We live in a society of rationalization.
Oh, thank you for a better explanation, Dead Urker. Kratom hits opiate receptors and you can get an addiction to it and have the same withdrawal symptoms as opiates. There you go. Is this motherfucker AI? No, he's all too real. My test for a rationalization is when you ask a person, what evidence would you see to prove your point wrong? They can't answer the question. This means that their worldview isn't falsifiable, which means it doesn't follow the rules of the scientific method. A rationalization is an emotional point. Someone needs to make logical sense for their own mental stability. For a rationalization, the person involved hasn't even considered other cases for why they might be wrong. Their logical chain is the only logical chain which can exist. If you ask someone to prove their logic, they just get angry. This is rationalization territory. Keep in mind, from Jonathan Haidt's research, that about 90% of human thought is rationalization and 10% is rationality. This dude also puts Jonathan Haidt up on a pedestal, and maybe I need to finish reading that book I got from him to, formulate more of an idea of what Haidt's work is about. I am incredibly skeptical given how often he comes up in conservative ideas and thoughts about the validity of his research, so I should finish checking it out.
Not rationality. We just believe random stuff, and there's not really a logical explanation for a lot of it, but we rationalize it somehow.
Okay, alright, sure, yeah, out of left field here. Why the logical argument for trans makes no sense? 1. The argument is founded upon an idea of gender and sex being different. This idea isn't falsifiable, and no evidence is supplied for why it really exists. It really is a game of defining terms. Things like nation, the nation, love, have cultural constructs around them, but that doesn't make the underlying thing fake. Okay. Alright, so this is your logical argument for trans making no sense. Alright. So your idea here is that gender and sex are not demonstrably different. Except that I can absolutely, beyond the doubt, show you that gender and sex are not the same thing. Okay, you've got a female coworker. You know, like you've got a female coworker. How do you know that that's a female coworker? How do you know? Oh, you don't. You have to take their word because you aren't like, presumably if you're a person who's decent, you're not, you know, flipping up their skirt, you're not like taking a peek, you're not like being a creep. So you aren't actually verifying genitals, you're not taking like a blood test to do DNA, you're not doing any of this shit. Instead, you just visually see someone, and based off of different cultural understandings of the various roles that we've internalized, you are like, ah, yes, woman. And then you go about with your business. All that happens in like a split second, right? So you can't really associate the actual sex of that person that you do not know and have never verified. You have never interacted with their sex. You've interacted with their construction and projection of gender. You've never interacted with another person's sex. So that's just not true on the face of it. And also, the second part of this is gobbledygook here. Because, like, this argument isn't falsifiable. Sure it is. Because if gender and sex were the same thing, you'd be able to demonstrate that. And you can't. Like, no one who thinks that sex and gender are the same thing actually acts like it on a day-to-day basis. This idea isn't falsifiable. No evidence is supplied for why it really exists. So I feel like I've kind of demonstrated this already. It's really a game of defining terms. Things like the nation, love, have cultural constructions around them, but that doesn't make the underlying thing fake. But that's the issue, right? Like, no one is saying gender is fake. People are saying gender is a social construct. Like, that's what they're saying. No one's saying gender isn't real. The same way people aren't saying nations aren't real. The same way people aren't saying love isn't real. This just isn't the argument, man. But we're only on part 1. There are 6 parts. 2! Sex is the most important and primal difference in human society. Sex is 2.5 billion years old. Nations are thousands of years. Race is hundreds of thousands. Uh-huh. But, just gonna throw this out there, is it? Just, is it? You know? Because I got news for you, man. Like, the sexual dimorphism of, like, human beings is not that big. You know? Like, there are men who are less athletic than women. There are women who are, you know, there are men who are more athletic, and vice versa. We exist on, like, a bimodal spectrum of, like, sexual expression, right? And so, like, when we talk about this, like, it's not, like, in aggregate, maybe, again, in aggregate, you have a bimodal distribution of sexual characteristics, but, like, it's not as binary as people like Rudyard like to believe it is. And that poses a problem to their outlook on life, because he thinks it is the primal distinction. When the real way to actually engage with this is, of course, to recognize that men and women are equals in society, and to treat other people as equals, because that's just the right thing to do. 3! There are serious neurological differences between men and women. You can't just ignore that. It's impossible to change that. And I just want to throw out there, again, how do you know what those neurological differences are when you aren't actually studying, like, or verifying someone's sex in the first place, right? Like, we started with point 1. You're not, like, checking genitals. You're not doing, like, blood tests. You're not doing any of these things that would, you know, in some way verify someone's sex, right? So how do you know what the sex of the brain you're interacting with is? I feel like this is pretty self-evident, but 4, how does the argument born in a different body make any sense? I feel I'm born in the body of a 17th century nobleman, but I'm not. I can't change that. Now, number one, that is very funny to say, actually, in a video. That is incredibly funny. I am here for it. Number two, it's because our bodies are not congruent with how we feel our bodies should be, and so we take action to make our bodies more congruent, whether through presentation, hormonal changes, surgery, etc., right? Like that's what trans people do. And like, frankly, if you really truly felt like you were born into the body of a 17th century nobleman, like there are things you can do to alleviate the distress you must constantly feel every day at not being in the body of a 17th century, nobleman. Like, maybe you could start dressing better. Maybe you could wear, like you could go to the Renaissance Festival. You could play D&D more. You could LARP, get involved in a LARPing group. You could do a lot of different things that would get you closer to being like that. And so, I think there might be a difference here, though, that, like, one is talking about, people being deeply, deeply, deeply uncomfortable with their day-to-day existence, and then taking steps to rectify that. And when you talk about 17th century noblemen, I'm not getting the impression, considering we've seen Rudyard a year later, that you are actually all that concerned or fussed with being a 17th century nobleman. All right, here we go. 5! There's the argument that a woman is what we say a woman is. That goes against all theory of language and logic ever. This is a cyclical argument. Except, okay. But we have examples of socially constructed categories that functionally operate like that, like sports teams. Like, if you say you're like a Giants fan, okay, I have no way of proving or disproving that. Like, seems kind of obvious that we have social roles that work like that, and there's no reason gender can't also work like that. All right, final one. 6! Falsification is impossible! Ask any activist here what they would need to say to not believe this. They would say it by definition, it's true, but we invented the definition. This means that this is a matter of faith, not rationality. I don't know. Like, this is like saying, what argument would I need to make in order to gaslight you into the feeling like you don't have schizophrenia anymore? Like, it's not applicable, because the entire point of talking about dysphoria in trans people is descriptive medicine. It is describing a coherent set of findings that are replicable and you can find in other people across the population. Like, we're describing the phenomena we're seeing in the world, right? Like, that's what the science here is. We observed this behavior, and it is consistent, and it is not, like, we can't make it go away, so we have to deal with it. Also, Patrick Lucas, thank you for gifting a membership over on YouTube. Very much appreciated. Thank you for supporting the stream. Like the same way, like, a biologist encountering a new species might sketch it out and, like, take samples. We are describing dysphoria. We are describing transgender people. So, like, it's not even by definition true. It's just, it's by observation true. It's observable phenomena, which is not a matter of faith, but a matter of rationality. Ooh, Dad Urker, you got a good gift. Nice.
Blunt, can anyone explain to me how the trans movement makes any sense logically? I've never gotten a real answer to that question. Well,
I feel like I just spent like 20 minutes going through that, so I think I did. I did it. It was me.
I ask people for an answer, they just say, we should accept whatever people believe. But that's not rational. Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman?
We should accept whatever anyone else believes, but, like, when someone tells you that they have depression and they exhibit, I'm sorry, like, yeah, no, when it comes to mental health, you do kind of have to accept that. Like, you do kind of have to accept that. And until there's, like, evidence to the contrary, yeah, you kind of have to accept what people say about their inner workings because you can't verify it in any other way.
Where no leftist activist could even define what a woman is demonstrates that.
Do you think maybe the documentary that he shot and had full creative control over to edit out whatever was inconvenient, do you think maybe there might have been some things that got left on the cutting room floor? Who can say?
Lived with some crazy people in my life. My mom had several different mental illnesses at the same time. The thing with crazy people is they don't put a sign on themselves saying, I'm crazy. Crazy people are completely assured that they are correct in their ideas and that everyone else is completely wrong. You tell someone is crazy since they're clearly disjointed. Their ideas don't connect into a cohesive whole. They start somewhere, stop, say something else completely unrelated. None of their ideas flow together.
Oh god, what was that? It flashed onto the screen so fast, but you can't expect me not to go frame by frame and see what that was. Fuck you guys. Not you guys. Fuck this guy for making me work like this. Cue for the leftist critics calling me crazy since my ideas don't connect into a coherent whole without actually providing any evidence. Going straight for gossiping, shaming, and rallying. Y'all are hacks. Get a new strategy. I mean, it's fun. What can I say?
I watched the Jesse Gender video on the doc. There's literally a moment where a professor explains it to Walsh and Walsh bleeps the whole thing out.
Oh yeah, isn't there a part? Yeah, it's the part where like he just zones out and like it fades into the background of the scene. They like, again, conservatives hate learning things. Conservatives hate learning things and they hate like someone actually explaining it. There's not a lack of people on the internet explaining trans people and why trans people are valid and existent. You know, like that's not... Rudyard just chooses not to seek those people out.
None of their ideas flow together in a coherent...
Jack, is that Odin speaking through him? Oh, maybe that's why it's all incoherent garbage. Odin's chiming in from time to time and ruining his flow.
Rational manner. Sometimes crazy people can have a point. Ted Kaczynski clearly had a couple bolts loose in his head, but I think parts of the Unabomber's manifesto are absolutely brilliant. What?
Bro, you started this by talking about Mouse Utopia, and now we're a little bit in, and you're talking about trans people and just being nonstop wrong about that. And now you're praising the fucking Unabomber, man. Dog. Oh man, of all the YouTubers that I am aware of, Rudyard is one of the most likely to just completely lose his tether on reality.
What this means is that if we had a crazy society, we would never know. If you're worried of...
I had a couple friends tell me, quote, I'm worried, I'm a narcissist, unquote. What I said is, quote, that means you're probably not a narcissist, unquote.
Being crazy, you're probably not crazy. If you believe whatever strange idea flows into your head with complete certainty, then you might be. A crazy society would vilify those who fought against it while demanding to insert its craziness everywhere.
Reality check for the West. Literally everyone else in the world thinks we're nuts. Chinese, Russian, South American, East European, Japanese, and African political leaders.
Don't besmirch the good name of Kazuki Odin.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. African political leaders literally use us as examples for what to avoid with going crazy. Literally, they do that though because we're the imperial hegemon. We're like one of the last superpowers on Earth, man. Like, yeah.
A crazy society would
also,
be...
have you fucking seen Donald Trump? Dude's talking about like being the guy who deserves credit for like catching Osama bin Laden or not catching Osama bin Laden. I'm confused. He put out a very confusing statement today.
As the rest of the world and other cultures, as those guys have got some issues. I cover this topic in much greater depth in my video on the psychological Black Death, which is also one of my favorite videos. This is a much bigger topic than I give it credit for here, but 20% of our population has a diagnosed mental illness now, and among people my age it jumps to over 40%. Almost all young people statistically have at least one big psychological issue. And I think these numbers are undercounts. This is the case for our society. We operate with all these ideas that don't exactly fit together. We use rationalizations to push social agendas.
Yeah, that's because there are limits to human knowledge, and we're always finding new ways things fit together. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that we don't know everything.
Another crazy person thing is the inability to see the world in perspective. For a brief reality check, our society literally doesn't believe in truth, logical consistency, reality, or that the past is...
Oh god, he got a new font. The argument for the why is he keeps coming back to gender, you know? Also, and like, if Rudyard wound up being, you know, one of us, I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked. We got a little Humpty Dumpty going on, you know what I'm saying? Just the amount he talks about it. The argument for the gender relativism. 1, there are cultural stereotypes around gender. 2, that makes them a cultural construct. 3, cultural constructs are things we invented. 4, thus since we invented it, we can change it at will. 5, thus reality doesn't really exist. And where does this actually reference human biology or studies of how the genders operate? One, there are studies of how genders operate. But 2, 5 is not the leap that people make when they believe in gender relativism. The 5 is not actually the thing. Like, people don't actually believe reality doesn't exist because gender is relative. Like, you wrote that to make yourself mad, man.
Lessons to teach us. I took a course in gender studies. This is stuff the left, which really runs our society, will all openly admit to themselves, as I say in this text wall. This is stuff they say.
God, I love that he even calls them and acknowledges them as text walls. It's so fucking funny.
They do. Can someone explain to me why that's not the definition of insanity? Women become more masculine in a post-scarcity society.
I'm sorry. This is your more masculine woman? This is your more masculine woman. She looks... Look, let me just say, she looks like she gets a lot of attention at the lesbian bar, okay?
Given as a general rule, the weight and difficulty of pregnancy and having children, which is the most pronounced in humans of almost any species.
Why do the pants have panty lines? Because she's wearing pantsies.
Means that men have to bring something else to the table. Since women have to spend 9 months pregnant and then raise the children for decades, the man brings resources and works to support the family.
Wait, women have to raise children for decades? Where are the men in this situation?
Counteract that. This is a normal arrangement across...
Are all of these AI? No, but he does use a lot of AI in his shit.
All societies in human history. However, in a society in which there isn't scarcity...
Oh no, he's an incel? Yeah, he's a Nazi, guys. Like, come on.
Don't really have a purpose since there's no way a woman and her children will starve or will be attacked. What this does is give all the leverage in sexual relations to women. Society then becomes very feminized. Women get tired of men since the men don't really offer...
Oh man, he's...
Rudyard, just put on a dress and some mouse ears and be the furry femboy you've always wanted to be.
You too can be one of the beautiful ones, Rudyard. Nightlight Plushy Jesus, thank you very much for the $5 dono. Can we read what's on screen real quick? Do we even need men? John Lawner on one of evolution's greatest unanswered questions. By John Lawner. Why do males exist? If you learned biology at school, your teachers will probably have told you it was because combining genes from different individuals, one male and one female, increases variation in a species, and it is variation that helps a species survive. Unfortunately, most evolutionary experts stopped believing in this explanation over 30 years ago. From a reproductive point of view, no individual is interested in anything very much beyond donating genes to the next generation. As far as the whole species are concerned, they are preserved or wiped out, more or less at random, largely according to the whims of climate and geology. In addition, you don't actually need sexes to produce variation. The vast majority of organisms...
No, we don't need them. Men are just pretty arm candy.
A trophy husbando. In addition, you don't actually need sexes to produce variation. The vast majority of organisms, like microbes, happily mutate and vary without sex. Oh, I can't scroll down. That's so sad. I wanna see the rest of it. Ugh.
Society then becomes very feminized. Women get tired of men since the men don't really offer them anything, since resources are no longer an issue.
Yeah, if only, two human beings could have more than a transactional relationship. I'm sorry, but if your idea of, a successful, romantic relationship is, I give you money and you give me sex, what you are describing is, hiring the services of a prostitute. That's not an actual relationship. It's a transaction. So, again, and this is more or less the way that this man views the world, right? This is how he views it. And it's very weird and off-putting, Yeah, the idea that instead of maybe just offering financial compensation, maybe make your time desirable for your partner to exist within. You gotta be a cool person. You've gotta be fun. You've gotta make your loved one laugh. And the idea that a woman would only be around you if you could provide, I don't know. That's such a poor view of the world.
Then results in women becoming agitated and angry at men, while also themselves becoming more masculine as they are now independent and no longer have to rely off men.
Oh wow, look at it's him. He threw up a picture of E.G. and Carol. Cool. We're attacking the victims of civilly liable rape, sexual assault. We're doing this. Okay. God, Rudyard's such a piece of shit.
External threats, there is no need for men to be masculine. Men become manly to hunt, fight off invaders, farm, and other difficult tasks that women generally can't do.
Basically all of those things that you guys in my audience, WhatIfAltHist's audience, all those things that you guys do. Yeah, you guys are all only getting buffed to fight foreign invaders and hunt and till your fields, right? Those are the only reasons men would ever get ripped, right?
Thing is that since women aren't willing to sexually negotiate with men, it creates no incentive for men to be masculine. This then results in a decline in masculinity since being...
What are you talking about? Men like femboys. I'm sorry. Also, I don't know who needs to hear this, but femboys can have big dicks. This isn't the idea that he's a skinny femboy. That doesn't mean they have a small dick. What Rudyard is basically saying here is that smaller, skinnier men are less virile in some way and less able to be men. It's so weird. It's such a weird thing to get hung up on for him.
Masculine doesn't bear any sexual reward. This creates compounding recursive effects in which, as neither sex has to struggle to make themselves attractive to the other sex, it reduces sexual interest. When men aren't masculine...
Let me tell you one thing, okay? If you're talking about oh man, men aren't interested. Yeah, I'm reduces sexual interest. I can guarantee you that everyone in this picture got laid.
To hear Rudyard say the phrase "sexually negotiate," and I reflexively maced my laptop monitor again.
Oh, knife is stuck. No.
Women aren't feminine. There's no desire for baby making. This then becomes...
I'm sorry, the idea that men are just being no, I can't desire baby making from you.
a negative cycle in which it self-reinforces until society falls
the secret is these men just use a condom and have sex anyway.
apart. Both men and women get more resentful of the other, acting out in different ways as a form of taking revenge for the collapse in mating. I spent a long time thinking over this video. I was trying to figure out all the logical structures you could use to explain Mouse Utopia. I came to the conclusion there are very many. I think it won't be until Mouse Utopia is finished that we can tease out what the exact causal mechanism that drives it. It could be that mammal brains can't handle extreme population density. This is why cities are always populations.
So why are you talking about Mouse Utopia? Only when Mouse Utopia is finished. Dude worked on it for like 40 years. What are you talking about? What do you mean when it's finished? Any of the results would have been found by now. Rats don't live that long.
Buff, but if you look at him, you can tell he has never seen the inside of a gym or had regular exercise habit.
It's true, Simric. It's true. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Yeah, maybe Rudyard was the real rat shaker.
Which have moral degeneracy, and for no part of human history, even in the ancient or medieval worlds, had sustainable birth rates. Perhaps we need to have interpersonal relationships in order to maintain morality. Once you remove that, you get too much free riding. Our urbanization is a big reason bureaucracy is so important in our society. The modern world is the most bureaucratic era ever, and it's also the only majority urban period.
Yeah, but bureaucratic organization allows us to build bigger, allows us to do more. Like, part of the wonder of ancient China was its bureaucracy. You know, like they were able to be highly organized, which allows you to specialize in more things. Allows for efficient distribution of resources. It was genius. It was a marvel for the time. Same with the Carolingian Empire in Europe. It really revolutionized things after the fall of the Roman Empire to have a new society keeping records.
Ever in history. What that means is that we can't use interpersonal
Rome was also highly bureaucratic.
Judgment to maintain standards. The village elders, local feudal lord, and parish priest can't know the character of everyone in the village. Instead, we use bureaucracies and test-taking to manage our society. The problem here is that tests can't assess the reality of the human condition. They leave out traits like morality, courage, honor, or wisdom. This then creates an incentive.
I mean, there have been attempts to test that in the past, but probably not the type of testing that, I'm babbling, but probably not the kind of testing, the kind of go survive in the woods. I guess we still have that. We do still have, tests where they're basically go live out in the woods for 3 weeks. We'll be back. And then they leave you alone.
For a degenerate society. We didn't evolve to be an urban species. Also, there's the incredible loneliness that comes from modern industrial urban societies.
Except that the thing is, you can have happy cities. There are lots of people on this planet who live in happy cities. The issue is, you need to actually invest in making those cities happy places to live, and not stressful beyond all measure.
The reason cities push you left is contact. It's harder to demonize undocumented or queer people when they're your neighbors. That's it.
True, Nomi Sunrider.
Their study has shown that interpersonal relationships are the most important factor for happiness and social well-being. In an anonymous urban society, this
also, people are feeling sad and alienated now because of social media. Social media and capitalist commodification of your time in order to maximize, how you're doing, hustle culture, for example. You hustling.
Somebody ask Rudyard if he knows why an overly complicated bureaucracy is referred to as Byzantine. Watch his head explode.
Thank you for the $5 dono, Naipius Duck, and very true. But, the other genuine question here is, hey, people don't have time. People are lonely. Social media takes up time. Your second or third hustle job takes up time. Your primary job takes up time. Your time to be with your loved ones takes up time. And your friends take up time. And like that is a hard environment to then also juggle all of these things effectively. Because oftentimes the capitalist demands on your time mean that you do not have time for like taking care of yourself or hanging out with others or taking care of your loved ones. And like all of that is true regardless of where you go in the United States. This is true also in rural areas of the country because that your time is being commodified. Like they are trying to take the 8 hours for sleep, 8 hours for work, 8 hours for what you will. They're trying to take the additional 8 hours for what you will, and they are trying to either make you turn it into a productive hustle, or they are trying to get you to essentially spend it on social media where you are commodified by the social media companies. You know? Like this shrinks the amount of time you have for yourself to recharge your own battery and also to spend time with other people.
Problem gets really acute. 90% of Gen Z feels lonely, and you could say that this results in complete social breakdown due to loneliness and poor socialization. Mammals aren't like ants or insects, which are naturally urban, because mammals need love, companionship, and that sort of thing.
Nothing is naturally urban. Like, cities are not natural.
To survive as a basic biological need. And those kinds of relationships get difficult to maintain when population density gets too high. Then you have the argument that without external threats and challenges, people just fall apart. Imagine a video game where you start with infinite hit points, currency, and weapons. Your video game character would just turn into a complete degenerate who would just mess around out of boredom. The entire society would turn into Grand Theft Auto. Keep in mind, the vast majority of people are selfish, dumb, and foolish, especially.
What are you talking about, man? We literally have video games where, people do that already. And, like, it turns out people are mostly cooperative. Like, if you actually look at video games where, like, people could, in theory, pick off newcomers and benefit, they don't do that. There are even games that don't involve violence. True, Ophelia.
So without societies that socialize them to be better. Without external pressure, society collapses into degeneracy. Complicated historical.
Sir, this is Electronics Boutique.
Oh man, Electronics Boutique. I remember that. I remember that place. They always had the good PS2 games. And PS1 games.
Historical events often occur for many different reasons, operating on many different levels at the exact same time. An easy example of this is the fall of Rome, where you can find loads of justifications for it between climate change, changes in military technology, diseases, changes in military structure, or Spengler's cycles of history, or moral degeneracy. And
again, as we learned previously covering a Rudyard video, Spengler is a Nazi.
The thing is, these are all factors operating at the same time that are bundled together into the same process. And this is occurring with Mouse Utopia, where you have all these different factors working together. And there's an interesting theory that has some evidence behind it called the Gaia hypothesis, which people believe that the natural order, or the planet, is self-regulating and is a single ecosystem in the same manner that the human body is. And
he just said so many stupid things. No, the Gaia theory is that the world is one gigantic organism. That's it. It's that Gaia, Mother Earth, is a real organism thing, right? And like, yeah, like the awful part about it is that Earth has one environmental system. It is one enclosed environmental system. We call it a biosphere, man. There's a term for this.
What I could also see Mouse Utopia as being is nature's way of self-regulating to prevent.
Oh god. One of the things which leads me to believe the Gaia hypothesis. Oh man, oh no, he believes it. Or that the Earth is self-regulating is how many times we've dodged some horrific catastrophe over the 20th century when the statistics were against us. That's just survivorship bias, man. That's survivorship bias. God damn it. Also, just there's a difference between the Earth being self-regulating in the sense that, like, the Earth's biosphere is, like, relatively stable. Like, stability and, like, things regulating
this
itself.
Many things wrong in the mirror?
I mean, he must. He's an expert. Nightlight Plushie Jesus, thank you for the $5 dono. And Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs.
I thought the Gaia theorem was when the planet was fighting back against the extraction of Mako energy by creating monsters.
Oh, God. Sake Tanuki, thank you thank you for that. But he actually believes this. Like, when he says self-regulating, he thinks of it as, like, a self-regulating as in an organism's body kind of maintaining itself. That's not how the biosphere works. Can I say the line? Always, Knifeiest Duck. The insane population growth of the 20th century will cause population collapse in the 21st. We had the Green Revolution at exactly the right time. We never had nuclear war, even though I've heard from people in the know that we've had so many near misses that statistically it doesn't make sense. I think a probable scenario is we'll never really know if climate change was an issue since global civilization collapse will happen soon enough. Keep in mind, human minds and culture are part of the ecosystem. Mother Earth or God can warp our minds to believe what is useful for her. This theory developed since the statistics for CO2 and various chemicals in the atmosphere were too stable over time that there basically had to be self-regulation. That's all insanity. Did you guys hear that part in there where Mother Earth is, like, psychically manipulating you? Anyway.
Single species from taking over and destroying the ecosystem. And so once one species gets too close to destroying the entire ecosystem, their birth rate collapses and they go crazy as a way to...
Mother Earth can warp her mind, but trans people can't use HRT. Yeah, that sums him up nicely. Yeah.
To keep them from destroying the entire body. One of the aspects of human nature that the Bible touches on, which I think is brilliant, is that human societies can very easily evolve to hate goodness itself. We have souls and know what is...
Oh god, okay, so now, okay, we're making a lot of claims about supernatural here. We know that we... Oh god. We know that we know goodness exists in our hearts, as the research by Jonathan Haidt and Sapolsky demonstrates that a significant amount, although not all of our moral code, is genetically encoded from birth. Something I figured out was the existence of projection proves a... What? Proves a soul bent towards goodness. Projection is super common once you know how to look for it. When someone projects, what's happening is their subconscious knows that they're living their life wrong, thus they envision their own flaws on others. What this proves is that people somewhere deep in their souls, beneath all the layers of experience, trauma, socialization, and rationalization, have a soul that knows what goodness is!
Oh no, I just realized that Rudyard has taken the old Nazi talking point of undesirables being a disease on the human body to its logical conclusion and slapped the Gaia theorem on his idiocy.
Knifeiest Duck, that is a bingo. That is exactly what he has done. It's very similar to the Nazi ideology of viewing a country as a body as well. It is a common hallmark of fascists that they make these kind of appeals to nature and talk about, you know, different constructions of society being like bodies. Thank you for the $5 dono. Oh, Rudyard.
Good in our hearts. Degenerate societies start to hate goodness since it's a standard that they can be held against. This is how Mouse Utopia can...
What does he think projection is? I think he's thinking of it something close to astral projection. You know, like, oh, you're projecting your soul's insecurities onto someone else when you project, and thus, you know, that proves that your soul knows what is good because it is projecting the things that are bad.
Collapse into complete nihilism. This is why bands of mice go around killing the families of those who...
Jesus. We know that killing those who continue to drive civilization forward is evil and stems from pure nihilism, since on a purely self-interested basis you're incentivized to keep those people alive, to exploit them for your own gain. Mouse Utopia by the end is driven by a profound loathing against all life.
choose to continue to procreate and continue society. A fourth possible origin is that we all know women get more emotional than men. Even feminists admit to this by now, but they say it's a positive thing. Power corrupts everyone. If you give any group total leverage, they will turn evil. And the Mouse Utopia...
God, can we also just, like, take a moment? Like, the idea that men are less emotional than women, like, it's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. Have you ever seen, like, how quickly a man can get angry? Like, the idea that, like... men and women are not emotional creatures is very, very weird to me. I've never understood that idea. This B-roll is creepy. It does look like it was filmed by a serial killer.
Be a mating market, which gives women total sexual leverage.
I'm sorry, I just heard the term mating market and I vomited a little in my heart.
Due to resource abundance. The problem is that you turn society into being about emotions, and then complete insanity ensues. The more you try to please your emotional whims, the more insane you get. Emotions are to be understood and tamed, not to rule. If you completely followed all of your emotions all the time, you would be incapable of functioning. However, we now live in a society based off emotion, which is very clearly self-evident if you just look outside. It's also literally...
One second. You know, our society very clearly based on emotion. Yeah. Alright. I had a clip of Donald Trump that I wanted to play so badly, and I think I exited out of it earlier. Damn. Sorry to keep you all in suspense. Alright. Back to this. My bad. When I look outside, I see darkness. Society must be quite dark. Can't hear when you don't speak into the mic? That's fine.
Literally what the left says they do. In our society, we have this ideal of fairness, of giving 50-50 to both sides. And
it's fine if you didn't understand what I was saying, because I was mumbling to myself trying to find a Donald Trump video that I prepped earlier, but I exited out of when we finished a segment. Too bad.
The reality, though, is being fair is saying the truth. And we don't actually follow this ideal because it's only applied when you criticize the left, and our society very frequently criticizes the right at all times. And people will say, Rudyard, I don't like how you're going after the left in this video. But the question I would ask is
also, all of our media, to an insane degree, prioritizes conservative communication and messaging. Like, to an insane degree. Like, it is commonplace in conservative circles to make comments about, like, abortion is murder, etc., etc., etc. Like, there's, if you actually examine some of the things that get normalized on our television, conservative talking points are the number one thing that gets normalized.
Anything I said incorrect? And can you disagree with any of the points I made about the left being nihilistic and all that sort of thing without just having a gut reaction? The thing is, it's not dramatic if it's true. If Mouse Utopia happens, it will completely change how we see the world. Civilization will spend centuries or millennia trying to reconcile what went wrong. Much is the same which has occurred with the fall of Rome. We will have to develop entirely new philosophies and religious updates to come to terms with the social lessons of Mouse Utopia. The problem with Mouse Utopia is that as society descends into it, it's very hard to explain to the population what's going on. That means you end up with a situation in which this catches the society when it's blind and slits its throat in the night. This is since if our
What are you talking about? Like, oh man, no, they people can't even communicate what's happening. It's just this all-encompassing feeling. It's just, you can't explain it, man. It's just malaise.
Society has not.
But then it will slit your throat. And it's just like, dude, like, either you're talking about like a scientific study that has concrete conclusions or you're not. And you can't have it both ways. And the thing is, Calhoun didn't do any favors to like the wider scientific community by, refraining from making hyperbolic and overly generalized statements based on absolutely nothing other than what he pulled out of his own ass. And that led to other people thinking that this was a solid basis for, social planning. There's a big phase of this in like the 80s and 90s of like social conditioning and stuff like that. And this study became one of those things that people used, and it turned out it's just not useful. It's bunk.
Experienced Mouse Utopia before, they just don't have a word or even a concept for it. What this also means is that there's no big or stark events which scream out, the world is changing. It's all very gradual. What would happen if Mouse Utopia were to happen is the society would gradually just go crazy. The public wouldn't realize what was happening until it had already occurred. Enough of the population would be insane that there would be no recognition of its insanity, and only a handful would notice. Something I find worrying is that in Mouse Utopia, the violent nihilists were the ones who organized into bands to slaughter those who were still functioning and having children. What that
violent nihilists, huh?
Tells me is that more likely than not, the government would be on the side of the chaos of Mouse Utopia, not fighting against it. Part 3, Comparisons.
Ah yes, the United States government, very much in favor of left-leaning degeneracy.
I look back on the predictions I make each year and compare them to how I saw the world before. I do this to analyze my track record to figure out what kind of biases I have.
Oh boy. Violent nihilist checks notes mice, indeed.
The things, comparing how I predicted the world in 2020 to where we are in 2024, the biggest thing which surprised me is I wasn't able to predict the sheer nihilism of what came next. You can watch some of my older videos.
I mean, I gotta be honest, I don't need to imagine your nihilism. Like, your entire ideology is loser shit, you know?
And I talk about how I predicted the left would go crazy. That turned out to be correct, but not in the way I thought, and I'd like to draw attention to it. The thing is that I thought they'd be like Mao or Stalin. We have a track record for what the left's going crazy already looks like. What surprised me, though, is its nihilistic bent and hatred for life itself. The old left is...
the hatred of life itself, which, you know, if one is a nihilist, why bother having hatred? Just curious.
Very optimistic and progressive, thinking Utopia was around the corner. The old left supported technological progress, increased population growth, family, and all that sort of thing. The modern woke left has no positive vision of the world in the future. It's just don't do blank. It's purely negative. Some older people might not believe me here when I say the left is openly suicidal, but to just go through the list, the modern left wants to degrow the economy, they view having children as immoral, they are bringing in millions of immigrants.
Again, these overly broad... Again, if you made these overly broad generalizations, you could say, oh yeah, well, you know what? All of the examples I just came up with were terrible. I gotta be honest. They're so bad. Jack, you are getting in the way of his propaganda and rhetoric. How dare you question this man? I'm doing my best. I don't want to be too much of an impediment. I just you're taking the fringest of views and saying every leftist thinks having children is immoral. That's crazy. Like, if you're talking about conservatives, that's like saying every conservative thinks that, like, abortion clinics should be firebombed, right? Like, that's just not true. Most conservatives don't think that.
Fun fact, Rudyard's father had debilitating mercury poisoning his entire life, and probably when he was conceived.
That explains some things. Prop Games, thank you for the $5 super chat.
To commit what they openly say is effectively civilizational suicide. They are printing the most money of any period ever in Western history. They are tearing...
Yeah, but that's also in part because we only started printing money relatively recently.
Down the statues of their great...
Also, we have the globalized currency. We have the petrol dollar. Like, we print more money because more of our money being in circulation is a good thing.
Leaders of the past, blackening their nation's greatest accomplishments. They say they want to destroy their societies. Can anyone find a single way the modern left is not committing social suicide? On top of all of this, people say that none of this matters, which blows my mind, given the left today controls almost...
Does he think this meme is unironic? Is that why he's putting this on screen? Does he not understand this joke?
People say that none of the modern left is not committing social suicide. On top of all of this, people say that none of this matters, which blows my mind, given the left today controls almost all of the whole Western world, with the tech industry, film, media, academia, government bureaucracy, churches, and corporations. A suicide cult runs our entire civilization, and we can't bring it up in polite conversation. Our society is...
What are you talking about? You're just gonna say that? You're not gonna elaborate on it whatsoever? What? Oh god. Yeah, this video's from last year. And he's complaining about the tech industry being left leaning. They all gave like $100 billion to Donald Trump. What are you talking about? Like all the money in the world.
Killing itself, and I'm not supposed to say anything. If I make too much noise, I'm a doomer. I'm 22. I'm stuck here for the rest of my life, hopefully. For those who haven't seen...
Okay. So, one, there are worse things in life than being called a doomer. Number one. And number two, you'll be stuck here for the rest of your life, hopefully? Where else were you gonna be stuck, man? Where else you gonna go? What are you talking? Yes, no, guys, he's 23. This video was a year ago when he was 22. He's so little.
My other videos, I'm not an unalloyed supporter of the new right. The new right has many horrible disadvantages, namely its bloodthirstiness, intolerance, and sociopathy, but the reason, to state my own personal bias that I'm right of center, is at least the new right's not trying to commit social suicide. The thing is, I couldn't find a comparison to the sheer suicidal nihilism of our culture anywhere else in history. Modern society is definitely decadent. Decadence is a natural process which occurs in every civilization, as I talk about in this video. Decadent societies such as Rome, Greece, India, China, or Islam see collapsing birth rates.
Islam isn't a society, man. You're talking about Greece and India and China. Those are three different countries. Islam isn't a country, man. Fuck.
Degenerate values and sexual practices, an inability to coordinate well, wage war.
My body is about to physically reject this video. Like my spleen is gonna pop my eyes out of their sockets.
No will to live, collapsing art or intellectual standards, and a disconnecting the elite and populace. Decadence is mouse utopia on a moderate level. When I look at scientific studies, one of the metrics I look at to assess how plausible the results of that study are to see how much of the rest of history would agree with it. It's my opinion that if you put Aristotle, Isaac Newton, Confucius, and Jesus in the same room, and if they agree on something, that means it's probably true. If a study...
You know, I know WhatIfAltHist's has no affiliation, as far as I'm aware, to Happy Science, but that's basically the concept of their highest level of heaven. Oh dear.
Comes out saying men and women are psychologically the same, I'd really need a lot of evidence to support it, as every society ever in history would treat that as completely insane. The thing with mouse utopia is it fits a framework that we've seen very commonly across human history, that being decadence. This makes me inclined to believe that it's possible. The thing is that historically there has never been a society as rich as the modern Western world since World War II. That means that there were constraints against mouse utopia. There's a bunch of things that are only happening in our society. Our decadence is on a completely different level. As a general rule, the wealthier a society, the worse its decadence. And so does it go to believe that if our society has a completely different level of wealth and comfort than previous societies, that we would not experience a greater level of decadence? As a culture, we've completely thrown out religion, art, history, philosophy, social standards, relations between the sexes.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, when we talk about, like, people existing in their different, like, bubbles, right? This is what we're talking about. This is, you can only believe this if you've never gone outside your bubble. Because, like, people still go to church. People still believe in, like, religion. See, people still, like, go to the movies and experience things. Like, people still talk about the relationship between the genders. Like, I don't know, man. Like, get more in touch with other human beings.
Where feminism at the highest rates in history, and our society is committing suicide, as I said before. We don't even make movies or popular music anymore. Think about that. Our society has stopped.
What are you talking about? We still have pop music, bro. What are you talking? We don't make movies anymore? Oh, God.
Doing anything of what societies do. Degeneracy at this level is unprecedented over history, except for Mouse Utopia. I hope over this video...
What are you talking about, bro? What are you talking... The only degeneracy of all time is in Mouse Utopia? Not like, I don't know, like the hundreds of years of slavery, or... Not, like, that doesn't count? The fucking Genghis Khan building, like, the towers of skulls, like, that doesn't count? What are you talking about? Historically, waves of feminism occur as a society is wealthy and are at the same time as decadence. This occurred in Greece in the 4th century BC, Rome in the 1st century BC, Islam, where the fuck is Islam? I have a general idea, but, like, what are you talking about? I thought it was a typo the first time, I swear to God. Islam in the 10th century AD, Babylon in the 6th century BC, and India or China in the BCs. As society falls apart, a new wave of patriarchy sets in. And India or China in the BCs. Also, why isn't this all organized by, like... Why'd you moved forward in time to Islam, and then you moved back in time to Babylon? But why? Why didn't you just order them chronologically? Why wouldn't you do that? God damn it. Don't you all know there's a society named Christian? Yeah, he's a swell dude.
You've drawn the line that the only mental model which explains the direction our society is going through is Mouse Utopia. This is the first time feminism dominated society. There were earlier periods of more female empowerment, but none of them reached the levels of feminism. This is the...
Women having the right to vote is on par with the most degenerate women he can imagine, who are also mice.
First time societies are importing immigrants to purposely replace their own population. This is the first...
It's not true. Like, immigrant workers have always been important to anywhere you go on Earth, man.
First time the elite makes satanic art. Doesn't the fact that any criticism of women in our society is called...
Dude, like, have you seen any of the art of Satan throughout the Middle Ages? Satan was, like, one of the only times they could be horny as hell, because, you know, Satan has to look good. They were all over Satan.
Sexist, and is not allowed so...
Satan was the first, like, you know, like, idol character.
Just show that we live in Mouse Utopia, where one of the preconditions is women getting more masculine and aggressive. The fact that I will probably get pushback for making this video, doesn't that show that we're already at a point where Mouse Utopia controls our society, where you can't even talk?
Also, like, I love how he throws that up on screen, and it's like, you know that, I'm sorry, you know that this lady is getting, like, either dick or pussy, whatever she wants. Like, she's doing fine, which kind of undermines your point. You know?
About it. We've started seeing the depressed male shut-ins called NEETs or Hikikomori. NEET stands for Not in Education, Employment, or Training. NEETs would have been unimaginable 5 years ago. I didn't think they were real even 3 years ago. Why are we defunding the police? How does that possibly benefit black people who often live in unstable communities who really need the police so society doesn't fall apart? This corresponds to the rise in violence seen with Mouse Utopia. If you look at the teen girl heartthrobs today, don't they look suspiciously like human versions of the beautiful ones? These aren't...
No, man, because when I look at a human being, I don't see a sexy rat. I feel like that should be that should be pretty normal to not see that. God.
Men who will fight off the neighboring tribe or farm. Once you remove masculinity from breeding, you've removed any conception of using breeding for procreating. The Hindus predicted an age called the Kali Yuga, in which
of course he's bringing up the Kali Yuga. Oh man, of course he's fucking doing that. Of course he's doing the Nazi thing. God
would
damn
be a
it.
spiritual dark age. Kali is the goddess of feminine destruction. It would be the feminine burning down the world out of pleasure while no one could reach God. The Hindus knew.
One of my favorite books, The Eye of Shiva, by Amaury de Reincourt, is about how ancient Hinduism reached many concepts that modern physics have only recently discovered. Stuff like reality being built off consciousness, the world being constant, atoms in flux, space and time being able to crash together and rip apart, the universe being billions of years and nearly infinitely vast. He also thinks the Hindus had a much more advanced understanding of human psychology than we do today. He says this occurred as the Hindus developed a scientific method of the spirit, in which holy men would delve into the spirit world and corroborate the evidence they saw to learn crazy stuff. Okay, but like, why aren't you reading a book written by actual Hindus? Why are you reading this book instead of, like, I don't know, Hindu scripture? Yeah, he's basically describing spirit science. Yeah, he learned about a method of spirit science. Yeah, one could say, yeah.
What we're living through now. This is part of a theme where I have a text wall here, where the Hindus knew a lot more about the world back in the ancient world than we give them credit for. The marriage and birth rate is collapsing at an unprecedented speed. There's again nothing like this before in history.
Well, it's precedented in that, South Korea is lower than us.
If we look at the countries where this is happening the fastest, in East Asia, such as Japan, Korea, and China, their birth rates are plummeting towards zero. They keep on falling lower and lower, where they approach just having no kids. There's no stabilization going on here. The horrible thing is that this is...
I mean, I think we'll find out rather quickly, at least when it comes to places like South Korea, whether or not stabilization will occur. I don't think that all of South Korean society is going to collapse because of mass utopia. I don't think anyone thinks that.
This is a process which is being seen almost everywhere in the world.
The countries in red have sustainable birth rates. This is happening at exponential speeds. In 10 years, half of these countries will be unsustainable at current projections. The birth rate is collapsing faster than any statistical projections guessed before. Again, I have videos going over, like, the natalists movement. It's disgusting, and they are degenerate and weird and gross. But I will say, I've looked into the birth rate thing. It's really not an insurmountable problem. I did a video on it because I figured we needed someone on the left to actually try and talk about these things, and I did my best, but long story short, this isn't something to worry about. We just need better policies to help people be more stable, have more time, and be able to enjoy life a little bit more.
Countries with stable birth rates today are the poorest in Africa. Almost no one, even in Latin America, India, or the Middle East, have stable birth rates now. Again, nothing like this has ever been seen before in history, and the only parallel is Mouse Utopia. If we look at Japan, the country where these factors have been driven the fastest, birth rates have completely collapsed. Japan is one of the lowest birth rates in the world. Women are in the workforce and don't want to get married. There's a social class of men called Hikika.
Not gonna lie, as a guy who's in the same age demographic as the herbivore men, I completely sympathize with them. Life is brutal now. If this channel didn't work out, I'd probably be working a minimum wage job. Social mobility is kinda dead for young men. Also, the sexual incentives are totally messed up. Women have impossibly high standards like 6 figures, 6 feet, both of which I am, but is 1% of the population. If you get married, there's a 50% divorce rate, initiated in the vast majority of cases by women. What you're looking at here is society provides very little incentives for young men to really try. Then society demonizes young men for tapping out, not empathizing. And real quick, yo, men, buck up, okay? It's gonna be okay. Like, just improve yourself, work on yourself, make more friends, do more activities, do the things you want to do, and be yourself around ladies, and find someone who likes you for you. Yeah, go volunteer, go into your community. There are plenty of really awesome folks out there. But, like, you gotta go out there and get it, you know? And, like, if you are dedicated to improving yourself, like, by exercising or learning more, those are often, like, the activities where you're going to be able to meet other people who are also interested in that. And maybe you can find, like, mutual curiosity and, like, go on some dates and, like, have some fun. And, like, I don't know, just enjoy life a little bit. But it becomes a lot easier to enjoy life when you start trying. You know, bare bones. When you start trying, life gets a lot better. So give it a good shot.
Amore or herbivore men. They aren't interested in sex and just stay at home and play video games. Nearly half of Japanese men under 40 are virgins. That's also self-reported, so the real numbers are probably higher. Japan is already in mouse utopia. Other countries are catching up. I think back to modern feminist culture, which hates the idea of any man treating a woman sexually in public. If a man so much as glances at a woman at the gym, hits on her in the street, or work, or acts dominant, he can be cancelled. The thing is that
oh no! Oh no! I will say, all of that is bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, but if you look at a woman, you know, and you're not a weirdo freak about it, you can do that. People have eyes, you know? You can just, like, look at someone, but don't, like, freak them out. Or, alternatively, you know, you can in fact hit on people, but you have to, like, feel out whether they're interested in being hit on. Like, if you just, like, yell a compliment at someone, that's not maybe necessarily the best way to go about it. You know, like, you have to kind of feel out if they're open for that interaction if you're just doing it, you know, regardless of where you're doing it, really. Then you just, like, build up some interest, but you gotta try. Because trying is hot. Trying is sexy. But, like, you can actually interact with a woman and it not be weird.
Women like when men are dominant or aggressive. What I've seen in the subconscious of modern feminism is it literally loathes...
Honestly, women like men who treat them nicely. Like, that... You know, that... Like, that's it. You just need to treat someone with mutual respect and, like, be honest and forthright about what you want. You know? That's how I've found all of my success.
The idea of women breeding with men and being happy starting families. The thing is, why does our society care so much about this? Women aren't children. They have agency and can politely reject men, and if they don't take a hint, pepper spray or shoot them. All of these cultural...
Just shoot them, Fivehead. You know, unironically, Rudyard says maybe one of the most misogynistic things in the video, just like casually, yeah, you know, if men talk to you, shoot them. That's fine.
Changes we've seen are occurring on what's really a visceral biological level. The left has thrown away all rationality, and they literally admit that proudly. They just say, this is what feels right. That's exactly how you would rationalize the hormonal changes which underlie mouse utopia. The thing I see with...
That's not at all... Like, I'm sorry, you're talking about mice, dude. Mice and human beings are not the same. Like, even if you granted the results of mice utopia... Mice and human beings aren't the same. We don't have the same social structures. We don't have the same limitations. Like, there's so many things... so many things wrong with what you're saying right now.
The feminist movement is there's no thought. If men can't talk to women at the gym, work, or public, how the hell are the sexes supposed to meet and make the next generation? The real...
just figure out a way to do it without being fucking weird, I guess.
The reason for this is that feminism loathes the idea of procreating and finds it disgusting, so they try all of these different methods to avoid it. A few months ago, I was looking at in modernity, we kind of just destroy social institutions without replacing them with anything. We'll just lose codes of politeness, intellectual standards, religion, art, and more, and no one notices. Nothing replaces them, just degenerate garbage architecture and streetwear, which is incredibly bad. This isn't normal. When the Greco-Roman culture died, it was
part of why it gets replaced with shittier and shittier stuff, Rudyard, is because of capitalism. Like, capitalism seeks to maximize profits, so it replaces the good shit with cheaper shit. You know? Jack, are you suggesting that we can avoid traps that mice fall for? That sounds unrealistic. Wow, I found free cheese.
Placed by the Christian. When the Mesopotamian civilization fell, the Persian rose. I started viewing our era as a behavioral drain. I then looked up that word and saw behavioral sink, which is a term from the mouse Utopia experiment. I realized
oh my god, you're basically the same as him. You could do the mouse Utopia experiment, Rudyard. You could become the rat.
Utopia is the only explanation for what's going on now. Part 4. What do we do? Man, this is such a hard question. I've honestly been thinking about this every day. Now that I've figured out a mental model which can explain the problems in our society, I can't unsee it. I honestly do believe this. It's the only way I can explain a resolution to the problems going on now, which have no other parallel in human history. How else do you resolve the complete plummeting in birth rates, the collapse in social...
I mean, you could resolve it by saying industrialization had a massive impact on, like, population growth, and then neoliberalism had a massive negative effect on population growth to the extent that there was a massive decline. You know, like, that the commodification of our time kind of leaves us with less ability to procreate like that.
Values. How do we as a society resolve how a very significant amount of the population, especially those in power, are insane people trying to commit civilizational suicide? I don't want to be like one of the people who gets too depressed around climate change, and past a certain point, you have to keep your theories and your intellectual ideas out of your daily life of work, friends, relationships, or washing the dishes.
Man, it's really disturbing hearing this man talk about ideas that he considers too dark to actually share on his YouTube channel. Like, that worries me a little bit, you know?
That being said, I am yet to see Miami or New York City sink underwater, and almost every factor in Mouse Utopia is already swinging.
Well, also, you wouldn't have expected to if you understood climate science.
The internet is not a good place to be vulnerable, but I see my realization of this as a duty from God to do something about it. Our society is already getting eaten alive by it, and the establishment is too complicit in it to notice. We need to start doing this so our civilizations and everything we love survives. We all saw what the end of this experiment looks like. We can't afford to have our mouse colony fail. Look at everything Western civilization, and frankly from the birth rate numbers, all the other
oh, look, guys, we found Islam. The country Islam. It's right here. Right below Orthodox. I love his stupid, shitty maps. God, they always make me laugh.
Civilizations have accomplished. Imagine if we have to restart with tribes in the Amazon or Congo. The good news is that we as a species are capable of planning and rational thought. We can control our impulses, band together, and survive. We need to do this to survive. Again, I'm 22. I can't pass this on to my descendants since I'm stuck here. Even if we rage against the dying light, we'll forever be...
I wonder how the hell Calhoun's experiment made it past the ethics board for the university. The answer to that is that there wasn't one. And that, some of the subsequent attempts to replicate his experiment were denied on ethical grounds for that very reason.
known as those who stood when we needed to, not those who went mad and committed cannibalism, burning their own civilization down. One of my favorite fantasy novels is the Quorum series by Michael Moorcock. It's set in a fantasy world where the gods of chaos have won. They then start destroying entire races and sinking continents beneath the sea out of boredom. The thing the book talks about is a little bit of chaos is very creative. A lot of it is completely destructive, as the areas run by the chaos gods for the longest become uninhabitable deserts as chaos needs a structure of order to operate in. There are 6 kinds of people in this novel where the chaos gods win.
Why are you telling us about his... Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh
More
god.
asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.
Suck it, Tanuki. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. I'm not familiar with this fantasy series. But I am gonna say that it's very funny that just out of nowhere he just injects this into the video. Like, fuck, it's dumb, but fuck, though I find it funny.
Become fanatical cultists who worship the chaos gods. Some become numb zombies who can't handle what's going on. Others become savage sociopathic barbarians. Another group copes by becoming normies who can't admit it. Others become crazy from the chaos. A final group are a small group of people trying to hold civilization together and beat the chaos gods. I see this split today in our society, especially among people my age. The final group of people need to organize, unite, and fight for the survival of civilization. I think the popularity of zombie movies is a sort of collective subconscious foreshadowing of Mouse Utopia.
Yeah, the collective subconscious got George Romero to direct Dawn of the Dead. You're so right, King.
Zombie apocalypse is a lot like Mouse Utopia. To be honest, each generation I see more zombies. Gen Alpha doesn't seem to have hobbies, independent, or an ability to function outside of iPads. This might make me sound crazy, but I look at the TV today, something's off. People look like puppets.
Did he make a Warhammer reference? Yeah, this guy likes Warhammer, but for all of the wrong reasons.
They don't move their eyes enough, their neck posture isn't right, they don't move their arms enough. It's like the spark is gone. It's the first death which Calhoun...
Women are more robotic on television than I'd like. Society is collapsing. Holy fuck. Oh man, dude. Fuck, he's cooked.
Talks about. There are 3 things that can forestall Mouse Utopia. The first is communities of those who are sane living together in out-of-the-way places. They can protect each other, farm, maintain sanity, and operate independently from the rest of society. They should test and purge any members who demonstrate signs of chaos corruption. They will be like the monks who...
He's literally just describing Warhammer. Fuck, man.
Passed on classical learning to the Dark Age until the revitalization of the Middle Ages. The second thing is that we can't afford for the forces of chaos to maintain control over the government. If they have control of the military, they will use it like the gangs of vicious mice to kill those who continue to procreate and survive. This is the only scenario where you could see complete extinction of the American nation or other world nations. We need the orderly to maintain control of society so that society can survive. The third is that we need a revitalization of religion. If you look back over history, God is the only force strong enough to maintain sanity and order in a world that's going crazy. The only thing strong enough to pull together the forces of order and keep them sane in the inevitable horrors that will occur is faith in God. Things will get better.
Like, just the apocalyptic preaching in his videos, because that's what it is ultimately. Like, it's this man can't talk about sanity. I won't allow it.
Eventually for evil is unsustainable. Evil burns itself out. All of this being said, I know I'm sounding dramatic. I am open to being wrong here. Most of the time when people preach doom, it just doesn't happen. That being said, the reason I support this theory, as I said before, is it's the only mental model which can explain why our society is so nihilistic. Also, it has lots of historical proxies beforehand, like the fall of the Maya, Rome, the Han Dynasty, the Abbasid Caliphate, and more. Society has collapsed many times before in history. The reason I went so hard on this video is that in case I'm wrong, the sunken cost is at worst, my reputation gets trashed. At best,
it's true. That's true. Your reputation could get trashed. Maybe. Who can say? Not gonna lie, guys, this is taking it out of me.
I get the word out and we can start reacting to these issues. If this is going to happen...
Like, I love that he just put together, like, a 50-minute long video essay to end with, by the way, if I'm wrong, my reputation will be ruined, but, whatever. And that's just the end of the video.
Need to do something about it. There's a good science fiction book named Fitzpatrick's War. It was written in the 90s and is set in the 25th century. What happens in Fitzpatrick's War is that over the course of the 21st century, the world's population peaks at 11 billion. Then society collapses into complete degeneracy. American and global culture becomes completely dysfunctional, nihilism, ghetto, and trashy. Then groups of rural Americans start living in the countryside away from it all. The religious fundamentalist rednecks are called Yukons since they're so rural and hickish. A comedian says they might as well be in the Yukon. In the 2060s, America has a civil war between inner city gangs who seize control of the central government and the Yukons. The Yukons win and burn all the major cities. Plagues ravage the world, whose population...
Thanks, man. This book sounds like it sucks ass.
Resets to 10% of what it was before in the early 22nd century. The Yukons recreate the English-speaking world as a rural Christian fundamentalist Anglo-Saxon monarchy. The Yukons create a secret social club of historians who try to engineer society towards the laws of history. The Yukons become obsessed with history to avoid recreating the crisis of the 21st century. The Muslims populate all of Europe while the Chinese repopulate East Asia. The world in Fitzpatrick's War is brutal. I won't deny that. I do admire the author's ability to show a pretty plausible scenario for how Mouse Utopia might play out in
this fantasy book that I read that takes place like 4 centuries from now. Yeah, I think it's exactly how this is all gonna play out. It's good. The people in the cities, they're gonna have a violent gang revolution to seize the state for some reason, and then they're the rural people are just gonna destroy all the cities of their own country, and then they'll spread their redneck Christianity across the face of the earth, and then that they'll have a super-powered super nation that no one can fight because they're the best at everything. Fucking Mary Sue country over here.
Actual human history terms, not in the lab. I don't think the author ever heard of Mouse Utopia. This was a pretty obscure experiment until recently. I think he picked it up on an intuitive basis. Also, Fitzpatrick's War...
I love that an experiment is something that one can just intuit. That he just, through the ether of the universe, absorbed the knowledge of Mouse Utopia. Fuck, I hate this.
Is one of the very few science fiction novels which accurately matches what human history looks like into the future. It's a future which looks a lot like the past, and fundamentally the only thing we have to study what the world might be like in the future is the past. When all is said and done, we're humans, not mice. I hope I'm wrong. That would be better for all of us. If my
Man, I love that he just ends on the note of we're humans, not mice. So, I could be wrong as fuck.
Reputation gets trashed and humanity survives, that's a great outcome. I don't want to turn into a right-wing male version of Greta Thunberg. I don't want to have...
Don't worry, dude. You don't have as much integrity in your fucking little pinky toe than she does in her entire body.
Of this video make you all so depressed you don't go to work tomorrow. That being said, we need to at least be thinking about this and taking it seriously.
Reversed.
I wish you all the best, and I hope to God we'll be fine.
And there we have it. We made it. We made it through an entire Rudyard video. And I'm devastated. My brain, it's gone. We've been streaming now for 7.5 hours. So, on that note, hey, like, comment, and subscribe, please. This was insanity. And, again, I went into this with just a handful of knowledge about the Mouse Utopia experiments, specifically some of the ways in which it had failed or had been unreplicable, insofar as other researchers replicated it. And the takeaway for me was just that, oh, well, maybe he's going to introduce some other arguments that I'm unaware of about Mouse Utopia, because I'm not an expert on Mouse Utopia. But his entire premise was literally just, yeah, I know it's deeply flawed and has never been replicated, and, you know, like, but whatever, like, science doesn't matter, and I'm going to use this as the basis and the framework for everything I believe about the world from this point on. And that seems bizarre, to say the least, you know? And I was expecting him to try and introduce more, but he never did.
Just got back from my subsidized mouse cheese and mouse housing. Has the West fallen yet?
The West is falling more and more by the day, comrade. Soon we shall gnaw to the moon and feast upon the bounty of its lands. All right, I feel like I kind of threw myself off the ending there, but that's fine. That's fine. Basically, he jumps to insane conclusions about this one study, and it undergirds everything he talks about. And it's kind of no wonder that, like, Elon Musk likes this guy and amplifies his opinions, because, you know, I bet Elon Musk would easily be someone who would read about Mouse Utopia and do exactly what Rudyard is doing. And that's what Elon Musk likes. Yes, men. And Rudyard's easy that way. With that, folks, this segment is donezo.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scene.